This is what being a NASCAR fan is all about. Singular history and tradition.
Thank you, everybody, for coming out. This is so special.
Unmatched on-track intensity.
We gotta go.
And triple-header playoffs action to ratchet up the stakes. Throw in a can't-miss concert, camping, and the legendary atmosphere of Talladega Boulevard. And you've got more than a race. You've got Talladega. Get your tickets now at TalladegaSuperspeedway.com.
Roll Tide and welcome to this Tuesday edition of Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR. This is Roger Hoover. Great to be with you from our studios here in Tuscaloosa, where we're getting set for a huge matchup, Alabama against Georgia on Saturday. Hope everyone enjoyed the open date for Alabama football, but as you'll see in a few moments, Alabama athletics very busy over this past weekend. We'll take a look at what's coming up on the show, plus our headlines, thanks to our friends RJ Young. RJ Young is the official technology solutions provider of Crimson Drive. They've given us this smart board to go through everything coming up on the show today. First things first, we'll have a conversation with Bray Hubbard through the first two ball games of the year. Bray Hubbard is one of the leading tacklers for Alabama. The defensive back from Ocean Springs, Mississippi, will join us to talk about his decision, first of all, to sign with Alabama and what's led to success on the field this year. Then we'll talk to one of the real legends of Alabama football, Dr. Gaylon McCollough, who, of course, was a part of the 1964 National Championship team under Coach Bryant here at Alabama. He joins us to talk about not only that 64 team that'll be honored coming up this Saturday, but also some life lessons from Bear Bryant that he's used into a very successful medical practice and writing career. Then we'll take a look back to all the fun we had last night at Baumhower's of Vestavia Hills with Crimson Tide Rewind. We'll give you the best of last night's show with Be Kind Crimson Tide Rewind. Looking at our headlines on this Tuesday, of course, Crimson Tide did not play a game this past Saturday, a chance to rest up. Same for the Georgia Bulldogs as we get set for a top 5 showdown. Alabama against Georgia under the lights at Saban Field. Both teams 3-0 and both teams in the top 5. Georgia ranked number 2 in the AP poll. They are the number 1 team still in the coaches poll, but 3-0 for Georgia, Alabama 3-0 with wins over Western Kentucky, South Florida, and then last time out at Wisconsin. Historically, in Tuscaloosa, Alabama has had the upper hand in this matchup, going 8-2 against the Bulldogs at home in Tuscaloosa again. And then even if you look at Kirby Smart against Alabama, 1-6 as a head coach against the Crimson Tide. So it'll be Kirby Smart versus Kalen DeBoer for the first time coming up Saturday. Some other notes around Tide athletics. SEC play has started for the Crimson Tide soccer team. Last Thursday had a 2-2 draw against the Texas Longhorns. Texas, the reigning Big 12 champion, now a member of the SEC. Then on Sunday, Alabama was home against Tennessee, and once again a 2-2 draw. So positive points at least for the Crimson Tide to start, even though Alabama is still looking for its first win in conference play. And coming up on Thursday, they'll be at home against the Missouri Tigers, 7 o'clock at the Alabama Soccer Stadium. Volleyball team will also get SEC play going coming up this week at the University of Tennessee. Coming up on Wednesday, tomorrow at 6 p.m. will be the start time, and then the Crimson Tide will stay on the road coming up this weekend. Another rivalry matchup against the Auburn Tigers coming up at 4 p.m. before volleyball returns home for some SEC matches next week. We're getting ready for, of course, Alabama against Georgia, September 28th, and look who the headliner is. At Vector Security Champions Lane, Lauren Elena, along with David Lewis, who will serve as her opener. David has really performed well before for our crowds at Champions Lane, so he'll be on stage along with Lauren Elena right before the ball game begins. We're going to have a lot of fun in that Bud Light backyard stage, not only with Lauren Elena, but comedian Shane Gillis will be introducing her, so a chance to interact with him. So much going on at Vector Security Champions Lane, starting at 11:30 in the morning, right after College Game Day is done. Just head over just outside the Walk of Champions, right behind the Tuska statue. We will have a full map of all the activities coming up on our Thursday show, but I wanted to remind you that Lauren Elena is coming up this Saturday. We look forward to visiting with her, hopefully as well this week on Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR. And keep in mind some of the other guests that we'll have coming up, including Easton Corbin for the Missouri game on October 26th. Full details available at championslane.com. Right now, we'll talk to one of the current stars for this Crimson Tide football team, and that is Bray Hubbard, who last year made an impact on special teams. This year, starting to make a real impact in the secondary for the Crimson Tide. He joins us as one of our one-on-one conversations this week. Roll Tide and welcome back to Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR. We're back at Bryant-Denny Stadium inside the Advantage Center at our podcast studio. I'm Roger Hoover. Now, please be joined by Alabama defensive back and one of the top tacklers on this team so far this year, Bray Hubbard, as we get set for Week 4 against Georgia. And Bray, Roll Tide. It's been a fun start to the season.
Yeah, it has. It's been a great season so far. Got a big matchup coming up this week, so excited for it.
How'd you use the open date to your advantage this past week?
Shoot, it's recovery, get your body right, get your legs back under you. I mean, we all needed it, so it was good. I mean, I got to go home for a second, see my family, see my brother, and all my siblings. So we played golf a little bit, but only 9 holes, couldn't play 18. So, yeah, I just went home, got my feet back under me, did some recovery stuff, and so feeling good for this week.
Where's home for you?
Ocean Springs, Mississippi, but now I live in Madison, Mississippi, because my dad retired and he moved up there. So, yeah, drove to Madison.
That's good. What can you tell us about growing up, first of all, in Ocean Springs? Because everyone, I'm sure, just points to the beach right away or golf, things like that. How was it for you?
No, it's great. I mean, most people come down there for the beach, but we have a great downtown, great places to eat, and I mean, probably one of the best school districts in Mississippi. So I loved it down there. I loved growing up. I wouldn't rather grow up anywhere else but Ocean Springs. I mean, most of my family's down there, so I know I'm a coast boy from down there, so I mean, Ocean Springs is a great place. I'd go visit it if I were you. So,
yeah, I've been down there a lot, especially around Biloxi a few times too.
Casinos.
So, yeah, really good place. And for you, was it a perfect place to grow up loving sports? How'd you get involved in sports?
I started at an early age. I had an older brother, so I was always on his teams playing up, which I think helped me moving forward as I got older. But yeah, so I mean, it's great. We got a bunch of different things to do down there. We got a great football team, great baseball team. All of our sports at our high school are really good, so that helps a lot. But, yeah, that's about it, though.
And then you developed into a really good football player. I think all of us now know you here at Alabama on defense, but tell us about your work on the other side of the ball on offense.
Yeah, it was crazy. I started playing quarterback when I was a sophomore in high school just because I played baseball. That's what I was actually going to play baseball before I came here. So, I always could throw the ball, whatever, and so when we got a new head coach my sophomore year, and he moved me to quarterback. I actually started at corner my freshman year on varsity, so that was kind of different too. Then to flip right back to offense my sophomore year and play quarterback, I played quarterback for my last 3 years of high school, and first year was kind of rough, trying to figure out everything, but my junior and senior year, that's when I kind of took off and threw for a lot of touchdowns, ran for a lot of touchdowns and yards, and that's it. So,
how'd you improve at quarterback? I mean, you mentioned it was kind of rough at first. What did you start to master as time went on?
Really, it was just my passing game was new, so I had to learn how to read defenses and stuff like that, and that was difficult sophomore year. Then in the off season, going into my junior year, I really had to step it up, and because I knew like if we wanted to win, I got to be able to go through the air now. So that's what I did. I worked on my game all through the spring and summer of getting my passing game down, doing different things, and sure enough, my junior year, I think it was the first game of the season, I think I threw for 4 and ran for 2, and it was like the coach on the other side was like, where did that come from? So then out through the year, we just kept going, and I think I ended my junior year with 52 touchdowns. It was 30 through the air and 22 on the ground. So it was a big improvement from, I don't even remember how many I had. I think I had 4 passing touchdowns my sophomore year, and but then coming to my junior year, it was a great season. So
that really is good numbers, and again, you got nearly every award there is for a Mississippi high school player to win at that time. How'd you handle all that attention?
I don't even know. I was very humble in high school. I just kind of did my thing and enjoyed being around my friends and stuff. I mean, I didn't really get all the hype. I wasn't like a big recruit for all the achievements that I had in high school. I mean, I wasn't your top recruit or anything like that. So I really just played. I didn't go play 7-on-7. I didn't do any of that. I just played regular, normal 11-on-11 football at my high school, and it just I guess naturally came, and I just didn't try to force anything. Just kind of did my thing and let it come to me. So
you mentioned recruiting. You were thinking about baseball for a while. Obviously, you had the skill set at quarterback as well. Were you recruited by a lot of schools as a quarterback?
Yeah. So only had all my other offers to play besides Mississippi State were to play quarterback. So Mississippi State offered me as a receiver. Alabama offered me as a safety. And all of my other ones were to play quarterback because I was your dual threat, I guess you could say. It was dual threat quarterback, so that's what they all wanted me to come play. So.
When did Alabama enter the picture? You said they offered you as a safety. When did you first get your contact
It was
here?
my junior year spring. I think it was it was Pete Golden at the time came. He came through. They do all their recruiting thing. It was actually, I don't remember if it was round 1 or 2 of the baseball playoffs, and he wanted to see me work out with the football team because he was like, I want to see this guy work out. I need to get some whatever. So sure enough, I had to go do like a workout before and do like hang clean, the squat, all this stuff. And I caught at the time for my baseball team. And so, I don't know, my legs were kind of shot, but I mean, I had to do it. And he came down and he was like, hey, we want to get you up in front of coach, all this stuff. So then I came up, I think it was June 4th was when I did camp here. And then I came back a couple days and had to do some more work with all the staff and stuff like that, and that's when I got my offer here. But it was a long process, and just because during the summer I was playing baseball too, with travel baseball, so we'd be in Birmingham, then we'd have to swing by Tuscaloosa, then come down or go from Tuscaloosa. One weekend I went from Birmingham, I came here, the next day or that night we drove to Starkville, woke up the next day, did a camp there, then drove home, and the next day I was in Georgia at a camp, or a Young Life camp, which is like a little church camp. So it was a busy week, I should say, for all the recruiting stuff and the baseball stuff combined. So
That's pretty big. I mean, it's hitting you all at once in that moment. How was it getting to interact with Coach Saban for the first time?
it was kind of intimidating. I mean, he doesn't really show many emotions, and as a high schooler, I mean, it's a dream. I mean, I guess it's everybody's dream to come play here, and just having him at the camp, I mean, people really didn't realize about his camps is they were like, his coaching, it's hard coaching, like it's rough. I remember we were doing drills to start the camp, and I thought I was gonna die. I mean, them camps were rough. I was like, I don't see how people do this, but no, he treats you like players. He treats everybody like players. I mean, he wants the best for you, so it was different though.
That's certainly good. And then as you go from that junior year to your senior year, what allowed Alabama to win out in the recruiting battle?
Yeah, just everything really just transformed into a great man. That's what the main part of it was. I knew that what the process and all that was. But I mean, it's not just football here. He wants you to be a great man when you leave here too, and that was the big part of it. And also having a great education was super big. And I mean, everybody thinks that football lasts forever, but really it doesn't. At some point it ends, and so you got to have something to rely on. And I knew here that, I'm going to get a great degree. And so with Coach Saban and all the staff that we got, they do a great job with transforming us into great men, but also academically they get us on the right path to get a college degree.
Historically, if you're able to play at Alabama under Coach Saban, you got to first prove it you can play on special teams, and that's where we saw you for the first time last year. What'd you really do in practice to kind of earn those moments of playing time you had a year ago?
Yeah, I just kept going hard every day. I mean, you never know with injuries and stuff what happens. I mean, I tell even the young guys today, because I mean, I didn't start on special teams the first. I don't remember how many games it was. The first 4 or 5 games, I was just sitting on the sideline, just on backup on special teams, and boom, somebody gets hurt and you're up, and you got to know what you're doing. But then it started in practice too, just going hard every day, and you got to take advantage of the rep you get. I mean, that's the key to it. You got to take advantage of it, and I wasn't mad about it. I was like, man, like, I'm bringing value to our team. Like, whatever they call me to do in this game, like, I got to do it to the best of my ability to help the team out. And so, I mean, I started out, I think, just on kickoff, and then towards the end of the year, I was on punt return and kickoff return, and I just stayed ready because, I mean, you never know what's going to happen. It's a long season, and you got to be ready to go. So
Yeah, that allowed you to play in some huge ball games, the Iron Bowl, the SEC Championship game, the Rose Bowl as well. And then on a Wednesday afternoon in January, you go into what you thought maybe would be a typical meeting, and then kind of everything changed, right?
Yeah, it was that meeting was crazy. I mean, I don't know. The way I was getting it was that he was coming back for another year. Then he hit us with the freaking brick. He was like, boom, I'm retiring. I was like, oh. I think the room went silent for maybe a minute straight. We didn't know what to do. We were just like, what in the world? But his speech the whole time was like he was coming back for another year, then dropped a bomb on us, and everybody was like, no way. But no, it was crazy. But
how'd you kind of handle that time in between Coach Saban retiring and then Friday night when Coach DeBoer came in?
Well, it was definitely hard, but I mean, I trusted Greg Byrne. I mean, he told us, hey, give me 72 hours, I think it was, he told us, and he held his word. But I knew also that whoever they were going to bring in here is going to be the best possible coach that we're going to get possible. And so that was part of the process for me. We're like, hey, like, I'm going to trust it. I got to trust it. I mean, we got a great team here. I mean, it's not like everybody's going to leave this place and stuff like that. We're going to have a great staff no matter what, and great support team everywhere around us. But it was hard at first because I didn't know what was next or who the coach was going to be, whatever it's going to be. But 72 hours, Greg Byrne held his word, and boom, Coach DeBoer came in. It was funny because the day that Coach DeBoer got the job, we got a text saying, hey, team meeting tonight. It'll be with Coach DeBoer. Well, it was a Friday, and so I drove home for the weekend because I was just like, I'm going to just get out of Tuscaloosa. It's been a hard week. Like, I need to go home. So I'm sitting on the couch. I haven't been sitting on the couch for 30 minutes, and that text come through. And I'm like, oh, my gosh. I'm like, I'm not going to make the meeting. I got to drive 3 hours back. And so I text Ellis. I'm like, hey, Ellis, like, what time is this meeting going to be? And he was like, oh, it's not going to be till later. We got, he's flying in from Washington and all this. And I was like, oh, thank goodness. So I hopped back in the truck, drove all the way to Tuscaloosa for the team meeting. And then we had the team meeting with Coach DeBoer. Then I ended up driving back home. Me and my brother came back with me to Tuscaloosa, so then he hopped in the driver's seat and drove back home for the weekend. So
That's a lot of driving.
No, it was a lot of driving. So
well, great that Alabama got him in place. When did you have a chance to get to meet him really one-on-one?
It was really right after he got the job. He kind of sat down with all of us, and we had meeting times where we could go in, talk to him. And it was really just see where our heads were, and that he was excited for all of us. But we had a great group of guys that stayed. I mean, we didn't have many guys leave, and so we all knew the same culture. We hold the same culture. So I mean, but he brought us all in to his office to introduce himself. He wanted to know more about us personally and everything. So it was great. So
not only Coach DeBoer comes in, but he brings in a new defensive coordinator in Kane Womack. He had been a head coach. Maurice Linguist comes in to be your position coach. He'd been a head coach at Buffalo. What'd you enjoy about getting to know those two guys and the vision they had for your group?
Yeah, I mean, you could tell Coach Womack with his success down in South Alabama. I mean, that Mobile is only 45 minutes from my hometown, so I've heard all about that. I have multiple friends that go to South Alabama, so I've seen everything that their defense did at South Alabama. I mean, they were kind of lights out and down there. So, but then Coach Mo, I remember Coach Mo when he first got here, he sat us all down in the team room, which is our meeting room, and he was just like, "Hey man, like we're getting ready to work. We're gonna whatever." And but no, it was great. I mean, you don't see a lot of head coaches giving up jobs to go somewhere else, but they were like, "This is the place to be. Like we're giving up head coach jobs to come here. Like this is where we want to be." And he was like, "Let's get to work."
One of the captains from last year is in your room, Malachi Moore, voted on as a captain before the season as well. Just how important is he as a leader for this team?
Oh, yeah. I mean, he's been here for, what is this, his fifth year now?
Yeah.
So, I mean, he knows everything. He's been here through Coach Saban, the whole process of that, and he's just a true leader. I mean, he comes in the building every day just ready to work, ready to get guys better. He's a role model. I mean, that's the guy I look up to in our room. And so, but he's a great leader, and, with the big change, I mean, he came back for his fifth year to play. Well, he wasn't expecting Coach Saban to retire, all this stuff. So, I mean, but now, I mean, it's just crazy how he's such a role model and just a great leader that kind of brought us all in together. And just, I mean, we got to work because, I mean, he's in the building every day freaking working hard. And so we saw that from him, saw that from our other captains we got. That's why they're voted captains. I mean, they came in every day just ready to work. But, yeah, Malachi, he's a different guy, great guy, so.
Talked about last year being ready for your moment whenever it came on special teams. Obviously, it did happen for you on defense this year. What led to some of the good work you had in fall camp and allowed you to get on the field as early as you have on the defensive side of the ball?
Yeah, I think just playing consistency is that's the big key, and you got to be consistent. And yeah, I think just knowing, and it's trust really. You got to trust all the guys around you, and they have to trust you too. And if there's no trust, I mean, it's hard to play. And so you got to have that trust from the guys around you, but I mean, it's preparation every week, week in, week out, just in fall camp, all through summer, just getting ready to go, knowing what you're doing and to the best of your ability. That's the key to getting on the field. So,
how much does being a former quarterback help you in what you do now?
It helps because, I mean, you can kind of see what guys want to do just with how they're, I mean, coverage, what a quarterback's doing. You can read a quarterback. He's going to tell you what he's going to do with his eyes, everything. He's not going to, he's not going to trick you. But, I mean, it helps because I know, like, what I tried to do when I was trying to move guys around. But, I mean, college quarterbacks are a lot better than high school quarterbacks. But it's kind of still the same thing, but it helps me a lot. Just, I can kind of see what the quarterback's doing and helps me know where the ball is going to go.
So when you're watching film, you kind of put yourself in like a guy like Carson Beck's shoes and kind of say, okay, what does he like to do? What is this Georgia offense trying to do each play?
Yeah. You can put yourself in his shoes, and you can tell that just what they're trying to do, just who his guys are. If, say, his guys are wherever they are, he's going to look over there, and he wants the ball to go to his guys. So.
Well, it's going to be exciting coming up this Saturday, Alabama against Georgia under the lights here at Saban Field, Bryant-Denny Stadium. Just how much do you love home games here at Tuscaloosa? What's your favorite part of game day?
Oh, I don't know. Game day is just crazy around here. I mean, it's a place like no other. So I'm trying to think what was my favorite part of game day. Can't beat Dixieland Delight in the fourth quarter. I mean, it's crazy. It's funny. All the fans getting involved in it. It's great. But Walk of Champions too was cool. Just seeing. I mean, it's crazy when the buses pull up to the Walk of Champions. I mean, I'm like, how long have y'all been sitting out here? Y'all got to be standing out there for hours, especially the people on the front, on the gates or whatever. I'm like, y'all got to be standing out here for hours. I'm like, y'all, true fans right there, loyal fans. So.
Do you usually have something playing in your headphones, or do you try to go headphones off, try to soak in the crowd?
I have stuff playing in my headphones, just some chill country music, just whatever it is. Just I don't like to be like super like amped up on stuff, so I just kind of relax and chill. So that's it.
That's certainly good. Just how much have you enjoyed this experience, getting to be a student athlete at a place like Alabama with all the resources you have, and again, how notable this program is all around the country?
Yeah, it's a blessing to be here. I mean, you got a great support staff all around us, with academics, coaching staff. I mean, we got it all here. I mean, it's really an honor. Just the way that they just help us out every day. I mean, we have great staff. I mean, they keep you healthy. I mean, whether it's in the training staff, whatever it is, whatever we need, we can get it, and that's huge. Because it's difficult. It's not an easy sport to play at a college level, and especially here. I mean, with the standard, with the greatness we have here. I mean, and we have a great support staff that helps us day in, day out, that keeps us going every day. So.
Did you go to the Joe a lot this spring? You miss baseball?
No, I went. I think my freshman spring I went a lot. I went to a couple games, but I mean I miss baseball a little bit, but I'm on the bigger, better things now, so I can't complain.
Yeah, you're locked into football. We'll get you out on this. Alabama against Georgia on Saturday. What's the biggest priority for this Tide defense against Georgia?
Yeah, I think we got to play just fundamentally sound, and I think the key is got to be better in the run game with everything, but also stopping the pass. That's the big thing. And so playing physical too. We gotta play physical this week. So I think that's a key part today is being physical on line of scrimmage and everything. We got to be physical everywhere, dominate physically, and and then got to be ready for number 15. That's going to be a big challenge. He's a great quarterback, and he knows what he's doing. He's been in that offense. What is it? His second or third year now starting. So I mean, he's and he's got great guys around him, great playmakers, but so do we. So we're ready for it.
We look forward to it. Bray Hubbard, thank you for your time. Roll Tide.
Roll Tide.
Time is running out to secure your seat at NASCAR's biggest and baddest track. This October 4th through the 6th, the NASCAR playoffs will make their long-awaited return to Talladega Superspeedway, where the only thing bigger than the action on the track is the unrivaled fan experience. Don't miss out on a 3-race weekend full of playoff action that will have you on the edge of your seat all race long. Get your tickets now for Talladega Playoffs Event Weekend, October 4th through the 6th at TalladegaSuperspeedway.com.
What's up, everybody? It's Q Robinson here, and you're watching Crimson Drive driven by NASCAR.
We go from one of the current stars of Alabama football to one of the legends that helped build the legacy of Alabama football nearly 60 years ago, really 60 years ago. If you go all the way back to the 1964 season, Alabama was undefeated until the Orange Bowl that year, but the national championship was awarded before the bowl season, and Gaylon McCollough has a national championship ring from serving as the center for the 1964 Crimson Tide. Quarterback of that team, Joe Namath, also Jackie Sherrill, who we visited with before. He'll be an honorary captain coming up, along with Dr. McCollough coming up on Saturday. But as we get ready for those two to be recognized and the 1964 champions to be recognized at Saban Field, we have a one-on-one conversation with Dr. Gaylon McCollough. Dr. McCollough, thank you so much for the time you've given us. How's everything going as you prepare for your Tuscaloosa return this weekend? Roll Tide.
Well, first of all, Roger, thank you for having me on. I'm always happy to talk about Coach Bryant and being there with him all those years and things that we learned from him. And I'm also really excited about having an opportunity to be with some of my former teammates. I am really honored to be one of the honorary captains and looking forward to seeing teammates from the 1964 National Championship team.
Well, that was certainly a great team that all Crimson Tide fans remember and love and appreciate. And for you, what was your journey like getting to Alabama? Where'd you grow up and how'd you eventually decide to sign with Bear Bryant and the Crimson Tide?
I grew up in Enterprise, Alabama, and I was actually a center linebacker, and I was recruited by several colleges, Georgia Tech, Auburn, Florida State, Clemson, and Alabama. And I had actually committed to go to Georgia Tech and become an architect. And Coach Bryant came along to recruit, and I had played on a high school championship team. And I told him, I said, Coach, I really am honored that you would ask me to come play for you, but I've already committed to go to Georgia Tech. And in his usual manner, he just hesitated and he looked down and then he looked up at me and he said, you know what, that's not a bad idea. He said, you'll get a great education. You'll win a lot of games. But he reached over on his hand and he pulled off a ring and he handed me a ring. And he said, but if you want to wear one of those that says national champions, you come to Alabama and I guarantee you'll have one before you leave from there. So all of a sudden plans changed and I decommitted to Georgia Tech from Georgia Tech and I decided to go to Alabama, and Alabama didn't have a architectural school. And so I went into medicine as actually a second choice and went straight through the pre-med program. And wasn't until I was a second year medical student that I really realized what I wanted to do in life. And we had a plastic surgeon come to our class and show before and after pictures of plastic surgery. And all of a sudden it was clicked in my head that that's architectural medicine. So I was able to take my love for architecture and my love for medicine and put them into one specialty, that is plastic surgery.
Very successful career as a result. So you're able to sign with Alabama and Coach Bryant. What was it like gaining some playing time? How hard was it back in your time to try and get on the field, especially with the number of players that were trying for the same positions at that time?
It wasn't easy. It was very competitive. Of course, there's tremendous similarities between Coach Bryant and Coach Saban. And so many of your generation never had an opportunity to get to know Coach Bryant or be hearing very much with anything. But I wrote a book entitled The Saban Process, the Bryant Promise. And the Bryant Promise is that if you believe in yourself and you have dedication and pride and never quit, you'll be a winner. The price of victory is high, but so are the rewards. And so that's the promise. And you know what? It worked. If we did everything he asked us to do, and then we got the national championship ring. And it was very competitive, as I said. Coach Bryant was a very tough taskmaster, just as Coach Saban was. And the competition was tough. And when I was a freshman, of course, the freshmen had our own program. In those days, we couldn't compete with the varsity. But whenever I got to the point, went to my sophomore year to compete, there were 5 centers ahead of me, upperclassmen. And so I had to work my way up through that group, and Leroy Jordan was there. And in those days, we played both ways. And after I think it was the Tennessee game, I started as the offensive center, and I played most of the offense from that point on, and Leroy played the defense.
How tough was it going up against Leroy Jordan in practice?
Oh, well, Leroy was a tough competitor too. He was tough as nails, and he was a great athlete. But I really didn't go up against him one-on-one that much because we were both playing the same position for most of the time. Interestingly enough, I actually went to Alabama as a linebacker. And I had been a center in high school, but I won the starting job as a sophomore. Leroy was on one side and I was on the other side. So he and I were co-linebackers. And in a preseason drill, I made a tackle and I broke my neck. And so my career as a linebacker was over. And so I went around, started hanging around the centers at practice, and I worked my way up. And that was a very tough thing too, because I had my mindset on being a linebacker. And that career ended with one play. And that's something that can happen to any athlete. You know, you're one play away from everything being gone aside.
So you become a center, you get to work closely with Alabama's quarterbacks, and that includes a young Joe Namath. How'd you see him earn his playing opportunity and then flourish as starter for the Crimson Tide?
Well, Joe was the best athlete that I had ever seen, and I'd been around some good athletes. I played in the high school all-star game, and we had some great athletes. Jimmy Seidel from the Birmingham area went to Auburn and was a great quarterback there. And Jimmy was the best athlete I'd seen to that point. But whenever Joe came along, he was a superior athlete in many ways. Many people never saw Joe get to perform at his peak because he went on, injured his knees, and he was still tremendous, a great athlete, a great quarterback. But if you had seen him before he got injured, you would have been really impressed with how good an athlete he was. We played basketball in the off season, and he was the first player that I'd ever seen that could dunk a basketball behind his head. And he was, I think, 6'1", 6'2" at the most, but that showed you his vertical leap that he could dunk a basketball behind his head. So, the jump pass, of course, Harry Gilmer supposedly initiated the jump pass, but if you had seen Joe throw the jump pass, I mean, his feet were 2.5 feet, 3 feet off the ground when he jumped. He was just an amazing athlete, and as I mentioned, I had played in linebacker, and in the spring game at the end of our sophomore year, at the end of our freshman year, he was on the opposite team. So I did have to go up against him, and trying to catch him was like trying to catch a butterfly in the wind. It was a very difficult situation.
It certainly was. And of course, he was the quarterback in 1964. The Crimson Tide win the national championship. What made that season special? Any games or moments that stand out that made that such a great year?
It was a great year in many respects. And number one is Joe was injured much of that year. And Joe probably played about maybe 60 or 65% of the time. Actually, Steve Sloan ended up playing a lot of the snaps during that year. And had it not been for Steve Sloan, we probably would not have won the championship that year. We came from behind in 5 games out of the 10 regular season games and won in the last minute or so. So our group was called the Cardiac Kids for that reason. But, you know, we had a mindset that as long as there was one snap on the game and a touchdown would win the game, we were going to win it. We just had that mindset that whatever it took, we were going to win. And we did. We were just extremely fortunate. We had a great group of men there. We loved each other. We played for each other. We had great coaching. And it was just, I guess you would say, the perfect situation.
And it was a perfect regular season for the Crimson Tide that year, but ultimately in the Orange Bowl, a loss to Texas. But I've read an anecdote that I'd love for you to share here about even though that game ended in a loss, a great lesson from Coach Bryant you learned immediately after Alabama just came short at the goal line. Could you share that with us, please?
I'll share a little bit about it. Texas had a great football team that year, and Joe did not play in the first half of the ball game. And so at halftime, I think we were behind by 10 points or so. And so Coach Bryant put Joe in, and we came back, and within 30 seconds to go in the game, we were on the 1 yard line, 4th and goal, and the touchdown wins the game for us. And Joe called a quarterback sneak directly behind me. When the play was over, I looked for him, and we were both in the end zone 2.5 feet, and the football was in the end zone 2.5 feet. And one official came in, took the ball, raised it up, called it a touchdown. Another came in, the line judge did, said, "Did you score?" I couldn't tell. He said, "Yeah, I took the ball away from him in the end zone." While they were talking, the head official, the umpire, I think, or referee, the one with the white hat, came running in, took the ball away from him, and sat it down on the 1 yard line and overruled the touchdown. And there was no instant replay in those days. And it was a split crew, and the guy with the white hat was from the Southwest Conference. And so the guy made a couple of really bad calls during that game, and it's my understanding that he lost his license to be an official the following year. So we actually won the game, but we didn't get credit for it. So we're walking off the field, and as we approach the sideline, Coach Bryant was standing there. He never threw his hat, never fussed. He just stood there like a tall oak tree. And somebody behind me, one of my teammates, and I'll never know who, said, "Coach, we scored." And with that, we all stopped, and we turned and looked at him, and he took a little step back, and he looked at us, and he said, "If Joe had walked in, there'd have been no question about it, would there?" And so what he did, he turned it. He turned it right around. And that was the greatest lesson, I think, that I learned. And it was on the last play that I played for him at the University of Alabama, the greatest lesson. And here's the lesson. If you want to accomplish something in life, you cannot do just enough to get the job done. You have to go above and beyond and leave no room for doubt. And that's the lesson that I took away from the Orange Bowl, took away from Alabama with me. And that has driven me the rest of my life. You can't do just enough. You've got to go above and beyond and leave no room for doubt, no matter what it is you're trying to do.
Really is a remarkable story, and again shows you the fairness that he had as well. And it's just, how would you lean on some other lessons that he had as you went into not only professional football but in your medicine career?
Well, organization. He was a great organizer. He surrounded himself with good people. And I learned that lesson too, that although I wasn't coaching football in a medical practice, I did exactly the same thing that he did. I surrounded myself with good people, people that were competent, people that were committed to the job, people that were willing to work hard, and people that went above and beyond what was expected. So that was one of the lessons that I learned from him as the organization of any group or organization. And, the other thing is that it's not always easy. It was tough those first few years. And I was up against a lot of competition in the Birmingham area. And competition did everything in the world they could to defeat me and beat me. But I'd been trained by two of the best. One was Coach Bryant, the other one was my medical professor, Dr. Jim Hicks. And so I had to buckle down and do just exactly the same sorts of things that we did in football. And of course, everything turned out okay, but it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy, but life's not easy. It's not meant to be easy. And I think sometimes having to go through some of the tough times is what makes us a better person as well.
Certainly true. And again, you've been able to share all those lessons in some books, not just in Alabama football, but just tell us, how many books have you written? Where can people check out your work?
Well, I just received, when I walked up here, a copy of my 26th book. And many of them are on sports. Some of them are medical textbooks. Others are about inspirational books. And then some are about the state of the world today. And so it really covers a broad spectrum, a couple of manuals for pre-medical students and for young doctors going into practice, another manual. So writing has become my avocation now. I used to play a lot of golf. I used to hunt. I used to fish. I used to do a lot of things. But I am now I'm an insatiable writer. As soon as I get a couple of hours, I'm working on my next book.
Well, we certainly look forward to diving into all those coming up soon. Dr. McCollough, just thank you so much for all the insights you've given us on the 1964 Crimson Tide National Championship team. Safe travels to Tuscaloosa this weekend. We look forward to honoring you and your Crimson Tide brothers. So just thank you again for all your time. Roll Tide.
Thank you very much for the opportunity.
I'm Bray Hubbard. You're watching Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR.
This is what being a NASCAR fan is all about.
Gets the win at Talladega.
Singular history and tradition. And triple-header playoffs action to ratchet up the stakes. Get your tickets now at TalladegaSuperspeedway.com.
Each and every Monday night here on the Crimson Tide Sports Network, we have one of our favorite shows of the week, Crimson Tide Rewind, presented by the Alabama Department of Public Health. It's always held in the Birmingham area at Baumhauer's in Vestavia Hills. Always a really lively crowd on hand, along with former Crimson Tide linebacker Corey Reamer. It's been a blast to host that show over the last couple of years, and we do invite your questions, not only with phone calls, and we did get a lot of calls on the show last night, but also make sure you submit your questions on Twitter or X at UA_CTSN. We always put up a tweet about 5 minutes before the show begins, and we invite your questions, so make sure you have your voice heard on Crimson Tide Rewind, plus the Everwood Crimson Tide post-game party that wraps up all of our game day coverage here on the network. You can always submit your questions for Gray Robertson, Christian Miller on that show as well on the CTSN Twitter account. But last night, we kind of looked back at the last 3 games of the season for the Crimson Tide, since there wasn't a true game to rewind from this past Saturday. We talked about Alabama, we previewed Alabama against Georgia, and we talked some SEC football as well, plus some thoughts on Kirby Smart from one of his former players, Corey Reamer. That's all in this edition of Be Kind Crimson Tide Rewind. Roll Tide, everyone. This is Roger Hoover alongside former Alabama linebacker Corey Reamer. And Corey, Roll Tide, not necessarily a game to rewind from this past Saturday, but how was your open day weekend? How was everything going?
It was great. Got to watch a lot of football. You know, we didn't have a game on. It was good for the team. Get some rest. Find some time to relax before they hit this little stretch of SEC play that opens up this weekend. But great overall weekend. There's some good football on. We got to watch a lot of football, which I was excited about. How about you?
Yeah, very similar. Stayed on the couch pretty much the entire day.
Yeah,
watched about everything I could, from Florida and Mississippi State kicking off in Starkville all the way to that fantastic finish in Boulder, Colorado.
Yeah, that was a good one to end on for sure. There was a bunch of good games. We were excited to see a lot of teams that were out there, finally facing some tougher competition on their schedules. Ole Miss is still one of those teams that we haven't seen face a tough team up until this point. But Tennessee finally got a tough road test with Oklahoma. A lot of good games around the league. It was fun to watch. There's a lot of those teams that we're going to be facing down the road, and some surprise performances, especially from Vanderbilt. This is a team that is, everybody's always counted out as an easy win for the schedule, and they just keep going out there, and Clark Lee's got that team fighting, giving Missouri, a top 10 ranked team, all they wanted this past weekend. It was a fun game to watch, fun Saturday, and did the same exact thing yesterday. Watch all the NFL I could possibly get.
There you go. So Alabama and Georgia both had open dates, but even still, College Game Day, all throughout all the college games we were watching, still people were talking about what's ahead coming up this Saturday between the Crimson Tide and the Bulldogs.
Yeah, I mean, this is definitely the marquee game of the season so far, easily the biggest matchup that we've seen. And I think everybody's excited to see what this Alabama team and this Georgia team. We saw Georgia get tested a little bit. 2 weeks ago against Kentucky, Alabama's looked pretty good. The scores have really been different maybe than what the game felt like especially in the first half. Alabama ends up running away with the Wisconsin game. It's, a lot of these games have felt closer, but the scores don't indicate how close they were. And now you finally get this matchup. Kirby Smart's over there licking his chops. He's got an opportunity to face Alabama, a Nick Saban-less Alabama. And we all know that Alabama's really gotten the better of Georgia, especially over the last, 10 years. One loss, I believe, is what it is in the national championship. It's been some great matchups. This rivalry has really blossomed with Kirby leaving Alabama, taking that Georgia job, and him taking the same things that Coach Saban did in Tuscaloosa, implementing them over in Georgia, and we've seen the success that he's been able to have coaching the same style, recruiting a lot of the same players, and He's got a lot of guys on that staff that are also, descendants of the Nick Saban coaching tree. So this is going to be a great matchup, completely different look than what we've seen for all the last 8 or 9 matchups that we've had between these two teams. Kalen DeBoer comes in with a completely different philosophy on offense, and Kay Womack on the defensive side. Usually we always got these, it's fun to watch because the defenses were always playing the same. It was a lot of the same 3-4 defense, and now it's a completely different matchup, and we'll see how it looks on Saturday. It's going to be a fun one.
The freshman phenom from Saraland, Ryan Williams, already leading the way. 10 catches, 285 yards, 4 touchdowns for the Crimson Tide. You can keep up with stats like that and really everything Alabama with the Alabama Crimson Tide mobile app presented by Cadence Bank. It's available at the App Store and Google Play. Download the Alabama Crimson Tide mobile app now for free. Before we go to the phones, Ryan Williams, we had so much buzz, hype around this number 1 recruit for this last signing class, and 3 games in, he's delivered.
Yeah, I don't know about you, but when we see 5-star recruits coming in as freshmen, I always am hesitant before I just jump in and think that they're going to be, the next great thing for this, for any team. Always. Recruiting is something that's hard to follow because you just see some of these guys that come in from the high school ranks and then they hit the college, and sometimes some of them work out, a lot of them do, but then some of them don't. You don't want to put too much on them to where they're, the pressure's too much. But this guy's been fun to watch, and he has delivered on all the expectations. Still hard to believe that he's 17 years old, supposed to be a senior in high school, and he's out there doing things. The most impressive thing to me is the maturity level that this guy's got of understanding the football. It's one thing to be really athletic, but to go put it into play in this environment where you're not just fast, but you're able to track the football really well. You're finding ways to get behind the secondary, get open, adjust to throws, and really helping his quarterback. Those are the things that you learn as you age at that position. And for him to go out there and kind of already have that established as 17 as a freshman, has been really impressive.
Corey, wanted to get your thoughts quickly on some SEC action we saw over the weekend. Briefly mentioned it at the top. The most notable matchup was really Tennessee at Oklahoma. The Vols get the win. Defense once again looked pretty strong.
Yeah, absolutely. That's one thing that Josh Heupel has really focused in on these last couple years. Tennessee's had a phenomenal offensive team. It's the defense that has really been the point of contention for them. It's kept them out of really taking that next step, competing for the SEC championships, beating those teams, beating the Georgias, when we had divisions, trying to represent the East. That was really the downfall for them. But you look at what they've been able to do so far this year. That defense has really stepped up and really just handcuffed Oklahoma on Saturday. Ended up getting the win, 25-15. That offense is really clicking. We're starting to see some of this Josh Heupel coaching tree. South Florida's head coach comes from the Josh Heupel tree. It just seems like Tennessee as a program and a university as a whole has kind of gotten in line. They've had some disconnect over the last 15 to 20 years, and now they seem to be headed in the right direction. They're going to be a team to watch. I think they've got a really good opportunity to make this 12-team playoff this year.
One game I was able to watch all of on this past Saturday was down on the Plains, Arkansas at Auburn. The Razorbacks pick up a 10-point victory in a game where there were a lot of mistakes really on both sides of the ball. Both teams making a lot of mistakes for the Razorbacks and the Tigers.
Yeah. That was an ugly game. There's no other way to put it. You've seen all the highlights from the press conferences from Coach Freeze, and I was listening and watching that game as well, and I kind of got lost how many turnovers there were. Auburn had so many opportunities. I think they had a total of 5 or 6 turnovers, fumbles when you're almost into the end zone, and interceptions. They're just trying to find some solutions to the turnover problem. They're leading the nation. I think they've got 13 or so turnovers through the first 3 or 4 games this year, and you can't win ball games that way. It doesn't matter how good you are. And I think I think the frustrating thing from an Auburn standpoint, if you're a fan, is you turned the ball over 3 times in the first half. You were down 7. Like, all these things that could have gone against you did, and you were only down 7. You had opportunity after opportunity after opportunity to be in that ball game, and they just couldn't find a way to get it done. So Hugh Freeze and the Auburn Tigers got a lot of work to do to really, regroup, figure out how to finish this season, because you want to talk about tough schedules.
Oh, yeah.
they got one of the toughest from here on out. I mean, you had Vandy and Louisiana Monroe on their schedule that you're looking at as like hopeful wins, and now those, that Vandy game is not looking as easy as it was earlier in the season. So they got some tough tests. They're going to get some tough together.
Well, and it's two teams meeting coming up this week, Auburn and Oklahoma, that both played two quarterbacks this past week and losses in conference play. So there's a ton to figure out. There's a lot of intrigue about that matchup, Oklahoma and Auburn.
Yeah, there is. And you had a lot of expectations for Oklahoma hosting Tennessee at home. End up same exact kind of – they're two teams that are pretty similar. I mean, I think Oklahoma had 3 turnovers in the first half as well. They end up going to their freshman backup quarterback, seeing if he can spark a little bit of offense, and he did. The difference is between these two teams is I think that Oklahoma found their quarterback for the rest of the season in their true freshman who went in there. He looked like a little bit of a deer in the headlights early on in that game, but once he settled in, they started finding some play calls that really suit his ability to go out there and make plays, and you could tell when they started doing a little bit of a hurry up, going quick, using his feet. And then his arm kind of came alive. He kind of settled into that position. He just has a little bit of grit about him. He was diving for first downs. He was going over the top, flipping into the end zone, trying to make plays. That team is going to rally around that quarterback, and you're going to see if he can carry it over from last week in that environment. It's a tough task when you ask him to go in to play one of the top 10 teams in the country. But I think that Oklahoma has found their guy going forward. Arnold for Oklahoma, he's a good quarterback. It's amazing that he goes in and turns the ball over the way that he does. But I think Auburn's only a 2.5-point dog at home against Oklahoma. This is going to be a heck of a matchup. That shows me that people think that Auburn's going to find a way to turn this thing around from what we saw last week against Arkansas.
It'll really be interesting. And, of course, Tennessee on the schedule, South Carolina on Alabama's schedule coming up in October. And as you mentioned a moment ago, Vanderbilt and Missouri also on the schedule. We've kind of known for about a year the Missouri game is going to be tough, but Vanderbilt is off to about as good a start as you can have. A win against Virginia Tech. Yes, a loss against Georgia State, but played Missouri to the wire and into overtime.
Yeah, that's the thing about these programs is like anybody can beat you on any given Saturday. And Vanderbilt's done that. They beat Virginia Tech in their opener. Really kind of opened some eyes for everybody of like, hey, this team might be for real. Drop the ball a little bit against Georgia State. That's the hard part about college football. And some of these younger guys is keeping them focused against teams that are not those premier games. And I think that's what really bit Vanderbilt. But taking Missouri down to the wire in Missouri, I mean, it was an incredible game. Clark Lee is a great coach. He's found himself a quarterback that goes out there and competes. Is very athletic. They're going to be a tough out for anybody. They are not the Vanderbilt of old this year, and they're going to give everybody all they want whenever Vanderbilt comes up on the schedule.
Certainly going to enjoy what's coming up. Starting at 6:30 with a kickoff of the game. 3:30 will be the airtime for us here on the Crimson Tide Sports Network. 3 hours, still probably not enough time to get ready for this matchup. Corey, we could talk for days about what's coming up between Alabama and Georgia.
Yeah, we definitely could, and it's going to start early. We got game day showing up in Tuscaloosa. That town is going to be rocking come 6 o'clock for kickoff time. It's going to be a lot of fun. This is a matchup that we've all grown accustomed to anticipating. When we saw them come out, be on the schedule for this team, new coach, new staff, this is one that everybody's got circled. The nation's going to be paying attention because, whenever you get number 2 and number 4 facing off, this is going to be a fun one to watch. I'm excited to see. There's a lot of things that got to go our way. We've got to eliminate a lot of mistakes, and try to create some turnovers. Georgia is a team that has not had a turnover at all so far this season. They've turned the ball over on downs right before before halftime against Tennessee State. That was the only turnover. No fumbles, no interceptions. This is an opportunity for this swarm defense to go out there and really put their stamp on this season, is go out there and try to turn Carson Beck over. There's going to be plenty of opportunities because I think they're going to be airing the ball out, so these DBs better be ready to go.
Better be ready to go. Again, Georgia is led by Kirby Smart, who had time previously on Alabama's staff. You got to know him quite well during your Tuscaloosa days. We know, obviously, different sideline now, all of that, but just what could you tell people about Kirby Smart and how he impacted you in Alabama?
He was one of the best coaches. I enjoyed playing for him. He's a player's coach, and you can see him when he goes out there, his interactions with his team. He's one of those guys that demands excellence, but he also can turn around and celebrate with you. That was that was what I always remembered about him was he would get onto you when you needed to hear whatever he had to say, but then he'd turn around and love on you whenever you did something right. He'd celebrate with you, get excited for you. He's just got an amazing amount of energy for a guy that, you know, I won't say his age because he's not that old. He's not that old. He's only. I realized the other day that he's only like 10 years older than me.
He intercepted a pass from Peyton Manning.
I know. He's not that old. He's just like, but to sustain it in this day and age in college football in an area, I feel like you're losing a lot of quality coaches based on what it requires to be a head coach with NIL and the transfer portal. Then you got a guy like Kirby Smart and Gaylon DeBoer, two of the best that actually are there for the right reasons. They love football, and Kirby loves football, and you can just tell he's always very intense, but he knows how to relate to these younger guys where these people, you know, these players are excited to play for him. He's got a good staff over there. Glenn Schumann, who's over there, defensive coordinator. He was a GA when I was at Alabama as well. He never said a word when he was in Tuscaloosa, but now he's defensive coordinator at Georgia, one of the best programs in the country. But Kirby's one of those guys that I respect a ton. He's going to be fun. He can coach for as long as he absolutely wants to. It's going to be fun.
So, again, the Crimson Tide will be a home underdog at Bryant-Denny Stadium. And, of course, Nick Saban will be on College Game Day, and he will get to make the pick in Tuscaloosa in front of the fans. What do you think? Does he go for the Tide or for Georgia? Make some rat poison?
Well, yeah.
I
think that's if he goes anything but Tuscaloosa, you know, but Alabama on his picks, it's definitely a motivating factor. I heard Tyler Booker say, he's like, I don't even watch Game Day. I don't want to hear any of that. Des Howard last weekend picks USC in that game against his alma mater in Michigan, and you see what happened. Michigan goes out and wins that ball game, maybe on purpose, maybe not, who knows. But I think it's just going to be an interesting matchup. This is going to be a fun game to watch. Two good teams that strength on strength, and a lot of history between both of these teams. It's going to be a fun game. I can't wait to see what happens on Saturday.
We look forward to it. Corey, we'll talk to you pregame. Roll Tide.
Roll Tide.
The NASCAR playoffs are heading to the high banks of Talladega for what is to be a 3-race weekend for the record books. You're not going to want to miss out on this once-in-a-lifetime experience. Get your tickets now for the Talladega Playoffs event weekend, October 4th through the 6th at TalladegaSuperspeedway.com. Friends, check out Game Day Done Right, because there's one thing we can really all agree on. No one wants to be the last one left at a tailgate at the end of the game, having to do all the cleanup, all the breakdown while their friends are out celebrating. If you've been in this situation before, you know the true value in what the team at Game Day Done Right provides. They handle the entire process for you, from setup to breakdown. Stellar customer service on game days to make sure your group is taken care of from start to finish. All you have to do is visit GameDayDoneRight.com, reserve your tailgate package, and let their team take it from there. Almost time to wrap up this edition of Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR. But first, we want to take a look at what's coming up on the network as we have a busy week ahead, getting you ready for Alabama against Georgia. Well, the ultimate preview will be coming up tomorrow with Hey Coach and the Gaylon DeBoer Show live from Baumhauer's Victory Grill in Tuscaloosa starting at 6 p.m. as Coach DeBoer will be at the restaurant along with Crimson Tide football player to break down what's coming up on Saturday. Don't forget, we'll have another edition of Crimson Drive driven by NASCAR on Thursday at 2 o'clock with more previews on Alabama against Georgia, plus a look at all Alabama athletics with Tying TV this week, debuting on Friday on our TV affiliates around the state, as well as on demand on RolledTide.com and the Alabama Athletics YouTube channel. Then Saturday is the day. Alabama against Georgia. We've talked about it all week, and we've talked about it really ever since last year's SEC championship game. It will kick off at 6:30. Our radio coverage will start at 3:30 all across the network as we look forward to bringing you everything from Alabama against Georgia. Don't forget to join us if you're listening, of course, on the radio network, Varsity Network app, and also make sure you tune in to that Yay Alabama booth cam for the live reaction to what happens between the Bulldogs and the Crimson Tide. Coach Gaylon DeBoer and Chris Stewart will talk about the ball game on Sunday with a new edition of the Gaylon DeBoer television show, again to our TV affiliates across the state and on demand at RolledTide.com. And then Corey Reamer and I will be back at it on Monday for Crimson Tide Rewind at 6 p.m. Hopefully talking about a Crimson Tide win against Georgia and looking ahead to what's coming up next week in Nashville against the Vanderbilt Commodores. Make sure you follow us on all of our social media platforms at UA_. @Hoover_CTSN. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications as well so you won't miss anything going on with Alabama athletics. That's what's coming up on the Crimson Tide Sports Network. And that's going to wrap up this edition of Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR. Huge thank you to our guest, Dr. Gaylon McCollough, talking about the 1964 national champions and hopefully a future national champion, Bray Hubbard. We appreciate him joining us. We'll have Jaleel Hurley coming up, another defensive back coming up on our Thursday show. But thank you to these two for joining us, and thank you as well to Ethan Carabin, our producer, put this entire show together. For everybody at the Crimson Tide Sports Network, I'm Roger Hoover here in Tuscaloosa saying thank you for watching. We'll see you Thursday. Roll Tide, everyone.